On a Tuesday morning in November, over the kitchen counter in our Seattle, Washington home, she announced the end of our marriage with 6 casual, cruel words while holding her coffee mug defensively. The divorce papers and lawyers followed later, but it was that moment, before she'd finished her first sip, that sealed our fate. Lily and I are spending Christmas with Derek this year. She needs a father figure. If you don't like it, you can divorce me. Returning to the bedroom, she left me standing in the kitchen, feeling something unfamiliar clarity. For Simone didn't realize, couldn't possibly know, that there was something deeper than anger and sorrow welling up inside me, a sense of finality. In our 3rd year of marriage, she began neglecting details about my life. Unbeknownst to her, 3 days prior, my supervisor at Boeing's Renton facility had presented me with an offer for a 4th time in 2 years, a transfer to Nagoya, Japan as senior lead on the next-gen composite fuselage program, working with a team of 60 engineers and a budget boasting more zeros than any I'd handled before. Each previous time, I declined due to commitments here. However, after being told by my daughter that I wasn't a genuine father figure, I called my supervisor back. To grasp the significance of what followed, it's crucial to understand the man who accepted those words without protest, a man molded over 13 years. The tale that unfolds lacks context without him. If this narrative resonates with you, perhaps reflecting a family you've given up for or a part of yourself you've delayed, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel instantly. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Share below an instance where someone doubted your abilities. This community values such experiences. Now let me continue with my tale. My name is Nathan Caldwell, aged 45. For 18 years, I've served as a senior aerospace engineer, currently with Boeing's Commercial Airplanes Division in the greater Seattle area. Raised in Tacoma, I earned a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Washington. The initial decade of my career saw me climbing the ladder from junior analyst to a role where other engineers sought my insights on problems that don't follow textbook solutions. I am not one who openly discusses himself, but in our household, self-promotion wasn't part of our vernacular. The work itself was the promoter. It spoke for itself. That was the underlying principle, communicated more through looks than lectures, passed down like a craftsmanship. I encountered Simone Hargrove at a New Year's Eve party in Capitol Hill in 2010. She was 31, working as an interior designer for a mid-sized firm downtown. Her laugh echoed as if it belonged to a room that was 3 times the size of whatever room she was actually in. I was 32, quiet, perhaps too serious, and I thought she was the most vibrant person I'd ever come across. She was divorced, which she revealed on our 3rd date, sitting at a window table at a restaurant in Ballard, seemingly waiting for me to react. Her daughter Lily was 2 years old. Her ex-husband was a man named Derek Paulson, a personal trainer turned gym owner from Bellevue, who, based on what I later gathered, cherished the concept of family more than its practicalities. He departed when our daughter Lily was 7 months old. Consistently paid child support punctually, maintained a distance, always sent belated birthday greetings. I remained unfazed. I wished to express the reason honestly. It wasn't for any heroic act. Rather, upon gazing at Simone, I felt, this woman is bearing a heavy burden with elegance, and I aspire to be the kind of man who assists in carrying it. We exchanged vows in June 2012 during a small ceremony at Volunteer Park Conservatory. Lily served as the flower girl, aged 4, stubbornly refusing to walk in a straight line, accidentally stepping on the ring bearer's foot twice, and yet she was the most beautiful sight I had ever witnessed. I never formally adopted Lily. Simone and I discussed adoption briefly at the outset. She expressed her desire to wait until Lily grew older until she could comprehend its significance. I concurred. During those initial 2 years, I would have consented to anything Simone suggested. Overlooking the specifics due to my overwhelming gratitude, I didn't scrutinize the conditions carefully enough upon being selected. Instead, I fulfilled my role diligently. At 6:30 every morning, I prepared Lily's lunch, learning which apples she preferred and which ones she found unpalatable. Despite my lack of soccer experience, I coached her team when she was 7, spending 3 evenings educating myself with YouTube tutorials prior. I sat in the last row of every school play, winter concert, and elementary school talent show, recording each event on my phone, though we never revisited the recordings, as my presence with a camera felt like evidence that I was attentive. Assisting her with her homework, and driving her to sleepovers at late hours when she called me distraught and homesick were also part of my commitment. On a Saturday morning when she was 9, I instructed her on how to bike in Magnuson Park parking lot. For such an extended duration, my knees ached for a week from running alongside her. While Derek transitioned from sending occasional birthday greetings to occasional weekend visits, he visited Lily roughly 4 times per year by the time she turned 10. Simone skillfully orchestrated these encounters with a bright enthusiasm, ensuring that Lily felt excited rather than anxious, and subtly advised her on her words and behavior. I remained at an appropriate distance as I grasped, without being explicitly told, that Derek's return was a complex matter in which I should not express my thoughts. Unburdened by opinions, I simply maintained my calendar, jam-packed with Lily's commitments, school activities, and daily life details, which I meticulously monitored with the same accuracy I applied to work specifications. My career at Boeing progressed steadily. At 38, I headed my first major project team, conducting a structural fatigue analysis for a regional jet variant, which eventually became the blueprint for composite wing testing within the division. When an opportunity in Japan surfaced in my inbox at 42, the Nagoya facility was part of a long-term collaboration with a Japanese aerospace company that required an American lead with extensive experience in composite fuselage structures. The compensation was 40% higher than my current salary, and the job scope was unmatched in the Seattle market. I declined. I informed my supervisor, Greg Tillman, a detail-oriented man who had known me for 9 years, that family circumstances made the timing inconvenient abroad. Greg understood and said the position might reappear. As predicted by him, it surfaced 3 more times over the subsequent 2 years. Each time I declined. Each time my partner Simone was unaware of the offer. I didn't share my feelings with her, fearing they would appear as criticisms or attempts to score points. Instead, I seemed indifferent, as if keeping a door closed between us to make her feel obligated. This wasn't how I was brought up. So I declined the trip to Japan, returned home, helped Lily with her AP chemistry assignments, prepared dinner, and kept my thoughts to myself. At that time, I didn't comprehend fully that Simone had been secretly calculating different figures from mine. The shifts began when Lily turned 14. Initially, minor changes occurred. Simone resumed her gym activities at a place she used to avoid while Lily was young. This wasn't the old gym, but a new one in Bellevue. She mentioned it casually, as if discussing traffic or weather. I noted it down and moved on. Soon after, Derek began visiting more frequently, not just 4 times a year, but nearly once a month. At an age when she realized fathers could be perceived differently compared to stepfathers, Lily appeared to relish those visits. Upon her return, she was lively and talkative, which I would acknowledge and encourage at dinner. While I was initially focused on Lily's bond with her biological father, if that was her preference, I later picked up on Simone's conversations about these encounters. Her tone altered when Derek's name was mentioned, and she started casually referring to him in unrelated contexts. For instance, Derek had predictions regarding Bellevue's real estate market. Derek possessed a keen insight for such matters, and it seemed Derek was becoming adept at many aspects. I can't claim to have been entirely oblivious. I observed these changes. In a similar predicament as many others might find themselves, I engaged in self-explanations attempting to justify the seemingly innocuous scenario, and reasoned that raising concerns would be detrimental. As a data professional, I am well aware of confirmation bias and human tendency to pattern match threats. I presented myself with logical explanations. However, 2 months prior to that Tuesday kitchen incident, I drove Lily to her Saturday soccer practice. By then, she had resumed the sport at age 15 and was quite skillful. Upon returning home, Simone was on a phone call in the backyard, unaware of my arrival. Approaching the kitchen to brew coffee, I overheard enough details, not everything, but enough. I won't disclose what I heard, as it is irrelevant. The crux of the matter lies in that very moment inside my Eastlake kitchen, where I stood motionless with my hands on the counter, comprehending the situation fully and making a consequential decision. Instead of becoming the man to explode, I decided against giving her an emotional standoff she might or might not have anticipated. What I truly wanted was to think things through. That night, I contacted my older brother Ryan, who resides in Portland and operates a small electrical contracting firm. We've been married for 20 years, and he's the person I confide in when I need to clear my thoughts. I didn't divulge all the details to him, I only shared sufficient information. He asked me, "Nathan, at what point does staying become the most self-destructive action you can take?" I pondered his question for a month without responding. Then on a Tuesday morning in November, Simone was standing in the kitchen and told me my daughter required a genuine male role model. It was then that I found my answer. At 7:45 a.m., I phoned Greg Tillman. He answered after the second ring. "The Japan position," I said. "Is the offer still valid?" A brief pause followed, not a lengthy one. Greg, known for his swift decisions, spoke up. "Nathan," he said, "I've been pondering if you'd ever contact me regarding that. I'm phoning now. The training schedule is set for January. Is that feasible?" I glanced around my kitchen, where I'd spent 8 years cooking and making memories, the coffee maker I bought, the tile I helped select, the photograph on the fridge of Lily at age 7 on a soccer field, holding a juice box, squinting at the camera, smiling. "January is doable," I replied. Initially, I didn't inform Simone right away. It wasn't about playing games. I wanted to clarify that point. I delayed telling her because there were certain tasks I needed to complete first, and I desired to accomplish them serenely, without any disturbance from her response. The first action I took was to call my lawyer. Her name is Patricia Weston, and she practices family law from an office on 5th Avenue downtown. She's the most straightforward individual I've encountered, which was why I employed her 3 years prior as my circumstances in Washington state became increasingly unclear alongside Simone. Upon seeking her advice initially, I failed to act on it. Today, I contacted her again. Earlier this morning, my wife informed me she intends to take my stepdaughter for Christmas with her ex-spouse, and if I'm displeased, I can file for divorce. Patricia remained silent for approximately 2 seconds before responding. "All right," she said, "tell me your current state regarding this decision." "I've surpassed that stage," I replied. "I'm reaching out to learn what documents I need and when to prepare them." Patricia outlined the necessary steps and timeline for me, though I won't recount the details as they are irrelevant here. In essence, I needed to be systematic. I had to maintain financial records and document shared assets, and I realized that in Washington state, known as a community property state, the division would be more mathematical than emotional. This appealed to me. The preference for math over drama. That was my planned strategy. The next action I took was to visit Ryan's home in Portland on a Saturday. I didn't inform Simone of my destination. I told her I had work commitments, which wasn't entirely untrue as I used part of the drive to discuss the Japan project with Greg over the phone. Ryan and I spent 4 hours in his garage. He had a heater running and offered 2 beers, during which we went over the entire situation. We discussed the practicalities, the upcoming 6 months, what needed organizing, the financial implications, the practical and professional aspects. At one point, Ryan asked, "What about Lily?" I paused, setting down my beer. "Lily is 15, I replied. "Lily isn't my biological daughter. Her biological father has re-entered our lives after being absent for most of hers, but he's not my child." Ryan was silent. "I love Lily," I said, "and I will continue to do so for the rest of my life, and she knows it. My being in Nagoya doesn't change that." After a lengthy pause, Ryan responded, "All right, so what do you need from me?" I clarified, "He's my brother." "He always has been." This conversation took place with Simone on a Thursday evening in late November, while Lily was at a friend's house, and I had prepared pasta, her favorite, as a gesture of normalcy amidst difficult times. "1. I've taken on the transfer to Nagoya departing during the second week of January. I've discussed this with Patricia Weston. Our divorce options are either amicable or difficult. I prefer the former." Simone gazed at me. "Certain moments in a marriage resurface later, seeking what was overlooked. This one has resurfaced multiple times. What sticks in my memory is her long silence. Not guilty silence, but rather baffled, as if she'd anticipated a different scenario, and I delivered an entirely different performance. "Patricia Weston is a divorce attorney," she eventually said. "Yes," I replied, "you already have a lawyer." "I've had one for 3 years," I said. I sought advice when things grew uncertain. I wanted to be informed. Another silence followed. "Japan," she said. "You're going to Japan. The Nagoya facility where I've been offered the lead role 4 times. Initially, I declined the offer as I believed I had valid reasons to remain. However, I've changed my mind." A sudden emotion flashed across her face, something I hadn't anticipated, and it appeared to be fear, not guilt or calculation. It seemed to me that she was confronting the reality that the narrative she had constructed for herself wasn't as she had imagined. You argued that Lily required a true father figure, and I've played that role for 11 years. I declined this transfer on 4 occasions due to her. In one brief conversation on a Tuesday morning, you dismissed everything I'd done because I wasn't Derek. Over the past month, I've had ample time to ponder this decision. I won't argue or make a spectacle. You made it clear what this family meant to you, and I heard you loud and clear. That night, Simone remained silent. She departed from the table. I tidied up. I retired early. The ensuing week was serene, a stillness characteristic of individuals engrossed in their private reflections and solitude. On January 11th, I embarked for Japan. My flight transited through Lax before touching down at Chubu Centrair International Airport near Nagoya at 6 o'clock local time. The company leased an apartment for me in the Higashi ward, a short walk from a subway station situated on the 4th floor of a sleek, contemporary building with an eastward-facing window. On clear mornings, I could observe the distant Yagoto Hills. Upon arrival, I unpacked my 2 suitcases, configured my laptop, and brewed coffee using the compact pour-over kit I'd brought, as I anticipated the difference in Japanese convenience store coffee. Reflecting on Lily, I sent her a message the morning of my departure. It was simple. I merely conveyed, departing for Japan today. Tomorrow brings a new phone number for me, yet our connection remains unchanged. I look forward to hearing from you as there's much to share. We'll chat soon. Her response: stay safe, send photos. Just 2 simple messages, yet profound in their significance, and they remain etched in my memory. I feel compelled to share with you a snapshot of those initial nights in Nagoya, as I believe people often assume that making a decisive choice, one that should have been made sooner, instantly brings a sense of validation, purity, or relief. In reality, that's not how it usually unfolds. Instead, there is an overwhelming quietness, a hush that follows the cessation of a lengthy sound. You don't immediately feel liberated. Instead, you can sense the weight of what you carried before. Every day, I found myself contemplating Lily, not just her as an abstract concept, but specific memories. How she pronounced certain words with an extra syllable until she was approximately 12 years old. One, her self-accomplished math solutions expression, a focused squint that later transformed into an easing of tension. A late-night phone call from a camping trip when she was 10, hearing noises outside her tent, lasting 20 minutes until she fell asleep on the line. It was stillness I felt then. The compilation of 11 years, etched with small, shared instances. Within my first work week, the magnitude of my agreement materialized. The Nagoya teams, skilled, disciplined, and technically proficient, made me strive harder just by their presence. The language obstacle existed, but was surmountable. Approximately 1/3 of my immediate colleagues spoke English fluently. Hiroshi, a skilled translator hired by Boeing, made me oblivious to language changes in sentences within mere fortnights. Every Sunday evening found me on the phone with my brother Ryan. Correspondence with Patricia Weston continued via email during the divorce proceedings. Simone had enlisted her own lawyer, a downtown figure whose name I recalled from bus shelter advertisements. The process was slow, as is customary in Washington, but it progressed harmoniously, as per my request, more math than melodrama. Neither Simone nor I made calls to one another. However, the call came on a Friday evening in Nagoya, which was Friday morning in Seattle. My phone vibrated on the kitchen counter, revealing Simone's name. After a pause of 1 or 2 rings, I accepted the call. "Derek is gone," she said. Her voice echoed the strain of someone who had recently cried but managed to compose themselves for this call. He was not what I expected. There was no response from me. He attended Christmas and was good with Lily. He appeared engaged and attentive, yet she paused and restarted her sentence. He contacted me in January, shortly after you departed. He mentioned he had been contemplating and didn't envision a genuine future with us. He expressed he wasn't prepared for the dedication of a real family scenario. These were his precise words. Not prepared for the dedication of a real family situation. In my 4th-floor apartment in Nagoya, I leaned against the kitchen counter. The afternoon light was subdued and pale. A neighbor's music could faintly be heard. "Simone," I eventually said, "I'm sorry that transpired." She emitted a sound not quite a laugh. "You're sorry?" "I'm not elated he caused you pain," I clarified. "I regret everything that transpired, but I won't return if that's your intention." After a long silence, she admitted, "I didn't call you to ask me to come back. I needed someone who comprehends, someone aware of the implications." And so, after 13 years, it was clear she called because I am that person. "How is Lily?" I asked. She responded with a softer tone. She's angry not at you, but perhaps at me, at Derek, at the predicament itself. A pause followed. She inquired about you yesterday. She wanted to know if you two were interacting. Communicating, I corrected. We text, I explained. She sends me images from her soccer matches, and I send her city shots. Simone murmured approvingly. That's good. We remained on the line for a few more moments without much else to discuss. After ending the call, I stood near the window, observing the sky transform above Higashi Ward as thoughts flooded me. I recalled that man who endured 6 seconds of casual cruelty unfazed in our Eastlake kitchen. My mind wandered to Ryan's question regarding when staying becomes destructive to oneself. It echoed with Lily's text, urging stay safe, send pictures. The divorce was concluded in April. Patricia handled the proceedings swiftly. The Eastlake house was granted to Simone, while we divided our financial accounts without a dispute, as we were both exhausted and neither possessed the strength for an argument. It seemed futile to both of us. I signed the final documents electronically at my Nagoya desk at 7 a.m., my cup of pour-over coffee sitting beside me on the keyboard. After shutting down my laptop, I attended a scheduled team meeting at 7:30, discussing stress tolerance in composite panel sections under varying high-altitude temperatures, an issue that piqued my curiosity. Admit it, there was a part of me following Simone's call, which lingered for weeks, hoping for a sense of triumph, the fulfillment of being validated. I had anticipated this, I believe. I thought that eventually the evidence would be clear, and I'd relish in the satisfaction of someone who played the long game successfully. However, it didn't feel like that. It felt like loss, a quieter and more intricate emotion than anger and messier than either. Over the span of 13 years, I built a life, a daughter, though not legally mine, who was deeply important in every way that mattered to me. A house in Eastlake where I knew which drawers stuck during humid weather and which stove burner ran hot, all gone. The rift wasn't just due to one act of betrayal, but rather a gradual pileup of many small instances where our perception of each other became unclear. Simultaneously experiencing sorrow and justice is possible. This is something I had to learn. One can take the right course of action and still grieve over its consequences. These two sentiments do not negate each other. 2 weeks following the finalization of the divorce, Lily sent me a lengthy message in 3 parts, spread over roughly 20 minutes, a habit she had when she had something significant to share. She wrote, I realize things have changed and I know you're far away. I wanted to express that I comprehend why you left, not in a negative sense. I believe you needed to, she added. You were the one who was present. I will forever remember that. Lastly, she shared, if I get accepted to University of Washington, it will only be about 3 hours from Seattle. I'm telling you this because it implies that in 3 years, we will both be in the same time zone again. I've read it thrice, then shared it with Ryan, who urged me not to suppress emotions. So I didn't. In my kitchen in Nagoya, experiencing feelings while my brother's voice echoed over the phone from Portland. That was a year ago. I'm still here. The project is 6 weeks ahead of schedule, a feat in aerospace that draws attention. Greg Tillman visited in March for an inspection and extended our handshake by more than usual, his way of giving a standing ovation. Now I can manage a brief conversation in Japanese at restaurants without gestures. I have a preferred ramen shop near the apartment, a cozy place with only 6 seats, a single menu on wood above the counter, and an owner who remembers my order, sometimes offering extra ginger unsolicited. Each morning, weather permitting, I jog by the Horikawa River. In the last 14 months, I've read more books than I did in the past 5 years combined. My interactions with Simone are infrequent, but we maintain a polite relationship as people do when they prioritize decency over unresolved grudges. Her life is in Seattle, while mine is here. Last Saturday, Lily sent me a video of her scoring a goal in her club team's regional qualifier. The clip lasted 11 seconds, and she had placed a star sticker at the point of ball contact. I rewatched it 6 times. My response was, that's the purest shot I've ever witnessed, and as your U7 coach and an impartial observer, I can vouch for that. She replied with 3 laughing emojis and a soccer ball icon. At times, people inquire if I harbor regrets about the way things transpired, whether there existed alternatives where I exerted more effort, lingered longer, made different decisions at key junctures. I've pondered this question honestly, much like I approach engineering challenges. What factors were at play? What limitations were present? When did the breakdown commence? My consistent response is this. I was a man who consistently showed up. For 11 years, I gave my all for that family. 4 times, I declined career opportunities because I believed I was constructing something worthy of the sacrifice. Yet on a November morning in our kitchen, the woman with whom I built it told me in 6 words that the entire edifice had gone unnoticed by her. I don't say this to assign fault. People focus on different aspects. Simone focused on something else. That's the poignancy of it. Though nobody was unkind, the issue was that we were navigating from distinct blueprints, rendering us incapable of finding common ground regarding the landscape. Here's what I've gathered. I stand on the far side of a transition, now dwelling in a city I hadn't foreseen residing in, engaged in tasks I take pride in, maintaining contact with a young lady who has evolved from a toddler resistant to walking in a straight line into a 16-year-old scoring clean goals and sending me videos adorned with star stickers. That's the legacy, not the house, not the union, not the life I imagined constructing. The creation that truly materialized is the one that delivered an 11-second video on a Saturday morning, portable enough to carry, and accompanies me wherever I roam. My father once said, "Do the work, let it speak," referring to carpentry. He meant showing up at job sites in Tacoma during rainfall, executing tasks diligently even when unseen, but now I see that advice applies to many aspects of life. For dedicated marriages, raising children, and committed careers, one assumes the role expected. When told they're insufficient, they strive to prove themselves. Their actions demonstrate their worth. At times, it requires crossing vast distances before it becomes clear. He didn't depart due to anger. He left because he believed what she said about himself and found her assessment incorrect. The most challenging aspect wasn't the divorce, relocation, or starting anew at 45 in a foreign land where he couldn't communicate fluently. The toughest part was exhibiting courage as a man conscious of his self-worth, despite the closest person doubting it. It seems many are holding out for external validation before safeguarding their worth. Nathan ceased waiting. Share below if anyone has doubted your value in a way that ultimately propelled you forward. I'm eager to read your stories. If this channel provides authentic content, consider subscribing. A new tale every week.